This is the iQOO 12, the first global phone equipped with Qualcomm's new flagship chipset, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. I'm Will for GSM Arena, and let's get into how this new chipset performs and what else the iQOO 12 has to offer in our full review. iQOO is a spin-off brand from Vivo that mainly caters to the Indian and Asian markets, and the latest iQOO 12 is their most feature-packed flagship yet. Before we get into anything else, let's talk about the chipset performance here. After all, that's what sets the iQOO 12 apart from any phone we've seen before. The Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 is what we'll see in flagships going forward through 2024, and it brings several advancements. These include a faster CPU, a more powerful and power-efficient GPU with better ray tracing, a new AI engine, and improved camera processing. We ran the benchmarks, and as expected, the iQOO 12 is considerably more powerful than last year's flagship generation. When it comes to the CPU, we're seeing a jump of 20 to 30% over phones with a Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. GPU benchmarks also saw about a 20% improvement over the previous chipset, and in specific ray tracing tasks, the scores were 45% better. At the moment, the iQOO 12 is the most powerful Android phone you can get, topping the charts. But it's not just about raw power, and the iQOO 12 actually managed to do a decent job when it comes to sustained performance. It was quite stable during our CPU stress test. There was significant throttling during the GPU stress test, but it was still better than many other flagships out there. So gamers should be happy overall, and the iQOO 12 flies through your everyday tasks too. Now let's talk more about the iQOO 12, starting with the design. The phone brings a premium look and feel. In the white colorway, the glass back looks like porcelain. It's glossy and flat, but it curves at the edges into a flat and glossy aluminum frame. The phone is also rather slippery. Also on the back are a huge, rounded square camera bump, as well as a small logo from BMW M Motorsport. The iQOO 12 has ingress protection rated at IP64. That means you should be good against dust and light splashes or rain, but avoid submerging the phone in water. The display of the iQOO 12 is a flat 6.78-inch E7 AMOLED with a 1260 by 2800 resolution and a 144Hz refresh rate. At 453 ppi, this screen is quite sharp, and you get support for 10-bit color depth and HDR10+ video. And the colors can be very accurate too, depending on the color settings you choose. The brightness of the iQOO 12's display is rather impressive. We achieved a maximum of around 500 nits with the manual brightness slider, and this could boost to over 1400 nits in auto mode when needed. The highest 144Hz refresh rate is actually reserved for games and compatible apps. In general, the phone uses 120Hz while swiping and scrolling, and 1Hz when idling to save energy. For audio, there's a pair of stereo speakers, the top one having both an earpiece and a grill on the top of the frame. The speakers have very good loudness, but the audio quality is just decent, with not much bass. You can listen for yourself with the provided link. You can wake up and unlock the iQOO 12 with the optical under-display fingerprint reader, which is quite responsive. And the phone comes with 256 or 512 gigs or a terabyte of UFS 4.0 storage. That's not expandable through microSD. The interface of the iQOO 12 is Vivo's FunTouch 13 on top of the new Android 14. It has some aesthetic differences compared to stock Android, like the shape of the quick toggles. One cool feature is that you can map a shortcut for an app or task to the volume down key. Since the iQOO 12 has an IR blaster, you can use it to control appliances with. And there's an Ultra game mode available, and it even has an in-game overlay like you'd find on dedicated gaming phones. As far as software support goes, the iQOO 12 has promised 3 major Android updates and 4 years of security patches. The phone has a 5000 mAh battery, and the battery life is good, with an active use score of 13 hours and 30 minutes is quite comparable to the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra. But what you get here that you wouldn't find on any Samsung phone is extra fast 120-watt charging. With the bundled adapter, we were able to charge the iQOO 12 from 0 to 69% in 15 minutes, and a full charge took 26 minutes. For cameras, the iQOO 12 has a 50-megapixel main cam, a 64-megapixel 3x telephoto, and a 50-megapixel ultrawide camera. The main camera's 12.5-megapixel photos are nicely detailed and sharp, with pleasant-looking processing. You also get great dynamic range and contrast. The colors are a notch more saturated than reality, but not over the top. There are various imperfections though, especially in areas of high complexity. These often manifest as random blurry spots, and it seems to be due to some processing errors and failed image stacking. Portraits can be taken with all 3 cameras, but the default is from the main cam with 2x digital zoom. These have great quality, with a well-exposed and detailed subject and proficient separation from the background. Low light photos taken with the main camera are excellent. There's a lot of resolved detail, great exposure, solid noise reduction, and good color saturation. The dynamic range is praiseworthy too. If you decide to use the night mode, the result is a slightly brighter photo. The main camera's 4K videos are acceptable in quality, but we expected more. The resolved detail is mediocre, and the picture looks somewhat washed out. There is good contrast and wide dynamic range though. The main cam can also record video in 8K at 30 FPS, and the level of detail is very good. The electronic stabilization on the iQOO 12 works great too. At night, the main cam supports 4K night mode video. It's bright and detailed with punchy colors and wide dynamic range. You can see some noise in the skies, but it's nothing too bad. Moving on to the telephoto cam. Its 16 megapixel photos at 3x zoom are excellent, with a high level of detail, balanced sharpness, lively colors, and low noise. The contrast and dynamic range are great too. You can also take macro close-ups using the telephoto cam, and they're really good. They're sharp and detailed, with nice color reproduction and a natural bokeh. iQOO advertises a 10x lossless zoom, and these are surprisingly good. The detail level isn't on par with the 3x zoom shots, but it's still decent. The sharpness is good, and the noise is low. At night, the 3x zoom photos are great. They're detailed, with low noise, nice colors, wide dynamic range, and good exposure. The telephoto cam's 4K videos are great as well. They're sharp with plenty of detail and lots of contrast. The dynamic range is wide too. Now we have the Ultrawide cam's 12.5 megapixel photos. They have an adequate level of detail and sharpness, and the colors match those of the other cameras. The dynamic range is quite wide. Since the Ultrawide has autofocus, you can use it to take macro shots too, and they look good. They're not quite as good as the macro shots from the telephoto cam though. Ultrawide photos we took at night are solid. They have enough detail, great dynamic range, good exposure, and okay looking colors. The Ultrawide cam's 4K videos are detailed and sharp, with accurate colors, no noise, and wide dynamic range. And finally, we have Selfies. These come out at 16 megapixels and have nice exposure, accurate colors, and wide dynamic range, but the detail level leaves a lot more to be desired. So there you have it guys. The new Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 brings plenty of benefits, and it's not just about the numbers. The improved ray tracing can support even better gaming performance down the line, and we can expect even better AI-based features too. And as far as the iQOO 12 goes, it's an excellent flagship-grade smartphone at a really competitive price. We did run into some issues and inconsistencies with the camera experience, but if those don't bother you, and if you can find the iQOO 12 available where you are, it's worth recommending. Thanks for watching guys. There aren't any alternatives yet with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, but you can check out our review of the iQOO 11 if you're looking to save some cash. Let us know what you think, and I'll see you on the next one.